Hello, it's me again. 1 second after doing that video, we're on to another video. Okay. So basically, this is my latest encounter with those lovable rogues, the Carters. Now, I was in Kelso over the weekend because I went to Edinburgh Castle to two concerts, and as I am somebody who likes his history, as you might well know, I took in a few castles in the area like I like to do, and in Kelso there's an abbey called Kelso Abbey, which is currently closed due to another building by Historic Scotland closed off due to alleged falling masonry, and there's a massive big place near to it called Floors Castle owned by the Dukes of Roxburgh. Yeah, dear me, how these people achieve their titles and their wealth is ridiculous. Hey ho, anyway, so we went to them. But the place we were staying in a little village called Gordon, bizarrely on the Airbnb it showed a picture of a breakfast. But the woman doesn't supply a breakfast, bit odd, but you can bring your own. You know, who travels that way with like cereal and bread and milk or whatever? It's just bizarre. So of course we had to then find somewhere to get our breakfast. We went into Kelso, the nearest town, and in the little sort of market square on the Saturday, I'm just standing there as my wife is going to every charity shop known to man, and I've already done the Abbey and taking pictures, so, you know, sort of wilting away for the will to live, wanting to go to somewhere else. And there's a guy there talking. There's a guy sitting on a bench talking to somebody else. Neatly dressed guy with a sort of cap on, older guy, and all I heard was, God is the only answer. Without God intervening in man's affairs, we're doomed. And I thought, bizarre, this sounds like a Jehovah's Witness actually talking to somebody like what we used to do in the good old days, actually doing something called street witnessing, actually talking to people, actually bringing the good news to people. I was absolutely awestruck when I saw this happening. So when he moved away from this guy, I sort of hung around for like a minute as it concluded. You can see the guy, I think he knew the guy, but he obviously wasn't interested. And I said, are you one of Jehovah's Witnesses by any chance? And he says, yes I am, let's go over here and talk. And I said to him, what a refreshing change to see somebody actually talking to people. I says, normally I just see you guys, wherever I go, standing next to cards, staying very silent. And we talked and talked. We talked for maybe half an hour, this guy. And the guy's name was called Alex, and he's from obviously the Kelso congregation. And as we talked, many things I brought up, he bizarrely agreed with. As in relation to the bizarre things what Stephen Letter just said about, oh, look at that little enemy of God. And he basically he said, we had a long conversation, we talked about a lot of things, and he gave the impression that he's not an elder, he's not a servant, he's just somebody who believes it's still the truth. And he sort of tried to get over the fact that he's been personally harmed by the elders and has fallen out with them many times, and he does his own research. You see, he's obviously seen as somebody who's a little bit of a troublemaker within the congregation. However, despite the fact that in the congregation he appears as a troublemaker, his faith is so strong that he still does street witnessing. He still approaches people because in his heart of hearts he still does believe in the Bible, he believes in Jehovah God, and he believes that if anybody has the truth, it is Jehovah's Witnesses. He doesn't agree with everything that the governing body come out with, and just admits that they are just men and they're not inspired of God. And it was refreshing to hear somebody say this, because he sees probably the witnesses, I didn't mention the things about the hypocrisy of child sex abuse scandals and being hidden and whatever. And he did admit that they've got a hell of a lot of things wrong. 1975 as he just came in. And I mentioned why he'd actually left the witnesses due to the... and he says, don't tell me, I know exactly why. He says the change in the generations theme. And he knew it straight away. It was extraordinary. And right at the end of the thing, he says, look, can I give you my card and send you a video? And I says, look, don't send me a video. So there's no point. And he actually wanted a hug. He was that genuine. He wanted to hug me. he wanted to hug my wife. He actually gave us, and it wasn't just a proper hug. It was like, it was like a COVID hug, Oh, sorry, it's not a COVID hug. That's a COVID hug's like this. But he actually properly embraced us because he actually felt, he felt sorry for us that we'd left the truth, as he still referred to it. And I came away thinking I thought I have more respect for him than any of the Carters recently, because at least he could see a lot of the flaws in the organisation, but he wanted to believe in something. And he was a 75-year-old man, and he was out trying to save lives, trying to take the good news to people, because the witnesses are still not going from house to house. That is still not going. It's still not happening. Bizarre. So contrast that event, and both myself and my wife walked away and said, wow, what a lovely man. He was a genuine, lovely man who was interested in us. And I had nothing but respect for him when I went away. Even though we disagreed, we agreed on a lot of things. And the next day, we went, of course, we had to then get a breakfast, day 2. And so we went and got something from Greg's, and we're just sitting there, and this time the market was out. And then we're just walking around the market, exactly the same bit we were with the guy Alex the day before, and lo and behold, I think I put up a picture of, there were 2 people I spotted on the left. I thought, oh my God, I don't believe it. It's the Carters. And they were doing exactly what Jehovah's Witness Carters do. They stand there, they were standing in the shade, speaking to no one, approaching no one. The other side of this sort of building were another pair of Jehovah's Witnesses, but they were in the sun, again standing there speaking to her. So I decided to go and speak to them because they were in the sun. And I spoke to them. The contrast was unbelievable. I actually went to them and did the same thing. I was just saying to them, I says, I fundamentally don't understand why I'm standing, why you don't approach people. And actually said to us, says, if there was, says that you should have stones laid out in front of you so the stones can speak the warning message that you're containing here. And I think there was a woman there, and a young girl, and it really put this woman's back up. And I just said to her basically the same thing that I'd said to the guy before. And I just said, look, I just said the same thing. It says that, eventually said I was a witness, I pioneered, I gave up further education, a career, everything else, to do what you're not doing. I actually went and spoke to people, and I says, yesterday I actually met a Jehovah's Witness for the first time in years who actually went and spoke to people on street witness. And I says, who was that? And I said, it was a really nice guy called Alex. And they both burst out laughing and went, oh, him. And obviously, I just thought, wow, how can you condemn him when his faith still tells him that he should approach people, that he's more concerned with speaking to people than standing there saying nothing. And I just said, how can this be? She says, yeah, but we do street work as well. I said, and I actually said to the woman, I said, well, when did you last do street work? Well, it was before COVID. So I was thinking, hold on a second, so you're on the street right now, you're expecting people to approach you, but you won't approach them because of COVID. You won't go to people's doors because of COVID. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing. Alex would go to approach somebody. You can keep your social distance if you still want to do that. Speak to people, and then hand them literature. But in the case of the Carters, they asked people to come up to them and then hand them literature. What is the difference? The difference is that these guys have been instructed now to wait for people to approach them and instead of doing what Alex did. So I actually said to her, like I said, when did you last do it? She said before COVID. And I said, well, why aren't you doing it now? Why aren't you doing what Alex is doing? Well, no, we've been asked not to do that. And I thought, that's why Alex is a rebel. They've been told not to approach people. And he's actually going against the grain, and actually doing something. Actually said to us, says, I cannot imagine Jesus Christ standing here right now being silent. I says, I cannot imagine it. I just can't imagine it at all. I says, Jesus Christ would approach people. He wouldn't expect people to keep on coming up to him. He went up to people and spoke to people. I says, I can't do this. I says, this constitutes the worst warning work of all time. I actually said, I gave a demonstration. I actually just said, this person walking past, you've not stopped them. This person, that person, this may be the last opportunity to hear about this important life-saving work you've got. I actually mentioned that, in fact, and I forgot to mention that Alex said that the authorities were that 30,000 Jehovah's Witnesses died. And I said to this woman, 30,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have died. And this is what I disagree with Alex was. Alex actually said to me, I says, why didn't he protect his people? He says, well, then people would therefore only join Jehovah's Witnesses, knowing that they get protection from the coronavirus. But the reason why a lot of people are Jehovah's Witnesses is to get protection from Armageddon and the spectacular slaughter. You know, they're not doing it for there is, you know, you keep your eyes on the prize. You know, that was keep them running in the race to get, you know, over the crossing line to receive your prize. You know, if there wasn't anything counted, any Jehovah's Witnesses had no everlasting life, no surviving Armageddon, how many of them would be doing what they do? So to actually then try to justify it by saying, well, the reason why it doesn't save this people is because loads of people are just doing it for their own reasons, just to preserve their own lives. That's why Jehovah's Witnesses are Jehovah's Witnesses. It's to preserve their lives through Armageddon, so that they can have this wonderful paradisic hope afterwards. You know, that's why they're doing it. If there wasn't any hope, I don't think there'd be any Jehovah's Witnesses. It's as simple as that. And I said this to this woman. I says, why Jehovah doesn't blame his people? He said, why does it? I says, why didn't Jehovah save his people? He says, well, she says, well, he doesn't do that these days. I says, but why? I says, who's to blame for COVID? And she said, well, you're blaming God for COVID. I says, no, I'm not. I says, well, who started COVID? And she said, it originated in China. I says, yeah, but who started it? He says, but you're blaming God. I says, no, I'm not. I says, who created it? He says, I don't know, it might have been a man. I says, well, why didn't God save his people? There was no answer. And then eventually, the guy in the other corner, the guy who was in the shady bit, decided to come over. You know, he was clearly the bouncer, and he was just standing there listening, you know, to what was going on. Round about this time, my wife came over, and she could see, oh no, here we go again, he's doing it again. And she's actually said to me now, she says, if I ever see that if we go anywhere as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're just getting back in the car and leaving. She says, I'm not going to be there when you engage in this thing. But clearly this woman, you know, and she says, shall I take, she was saying, my wife was saying, I'll just take him away. And she's going, yes, please, take him away, go. Clearly not interested in trying to persuade me, trying to show me that I'd left the organisation, that really, you know, clearly thought, oh man, this is an apostate here, even though I was asking genuine questions. But it's typical Jehovah's Witnesses, when you ask genuine questions, you just do not get any answers, and you just get, oh no, can you just go away now, because clearly I don't have the answers for you. I will never have the answers for you. Bizarre. Anyway, I got dragged away from my wife by my wife. And as I was being dragged away, I said to these people who were there, because I think the bouncer guy was there. Oh no, another woman had turned up who was trying to drag her daughter away. Another one came up and says, excuse me, can you just take my daughter away? Because they thought, oh no, there's an apostate over there. We need to protect my young 15-year-old daughter, or 14-year-old daughter. Says, we need to take them away. I'm over here to take her away. And as I dragged her away, as I walked away, I says, don't be silent, everybody. He says, all these people want to know about Jehovah's kingdom. Anyhow, I got really bad trouble. My wife and I says, oh my God, you've been an absolute fool of yourself there. I says, no, but that's what they should be doing. So I probably did make a fool of myself anyway, and they'll probably come away thinking that guy was a complete utter arsehole. But anyhow, this is the indignation I feel every time I see the Carters. I just think, wowee, how easy it to be Jehovah's Witness. You know, you don't have to go door chopping, you don't have to go street witnessing, you just stand there and do fuck all. And you think that is you saving your own life and saving other people. It is fundamentally an absolute joke, and it is the worst warning work of all time. Anyway, that's all I have to say on the subject. So, I show you a tour of my kitchen to show there's no mouldy areas here. But I won't. Anyway, because, well, there isn't anyway. And I haven't hoovered down here as well, so it looks a lot bit grubby. Because I was away the weekend. I will do it later. Anyway, I'm going to go and do some work in somebody's garden. And by the way, for all those people in England who are going, oh, it's so hot, how am I going to complain? I've told you, just come to Scotland. Look at this, everybody. Here's Scotland. And I don't know if you can see everybody, but that is not the blue sky. That is cloudy, yeah. And while I was away in Edinburgh, it was mostly cloudy. It was sunny for a few parts. And when we came back over to the southwest of Scotland, in fact, it rained one of the days we were there. When we came back to southwest Scotland yesterday, We got back and it was dead. Then clouds came over, and by 5 o'clock that was it, game over. And it rained during the night. And today it's cloudy again. Ah dear. You know, honestly, if you're too hot in England, it's easy. Just come over up to Scotland and you will not be disappointed with how cold it really is. Anyway, see you later. Bye bye.